Hi, it's Steve here from Steve Marsden Fitness. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to use your diet so that you get toned. And this is a video that is going to be full of the theory behind everything that is backed by science as we know it now. Now, just a precursor, some people don't like using the word toned, but that is how I see a body that has muscle development with low body fat. So if you do have a problem with the word toned, that's how I'm defining it. A lot of the people that I train, they're not into this fitness business, they're not into all that, so we're just going to use that word. And if you don't like it, you can go to another person's channel. So at the moment, we need two things with diet in order to maintain muscle mass and drop body fat. The first thing we need is a calorie deficit. Now, calories can turn a lot of people off, but it is just a unit of measurement that measures how much energy we are taking in and how much energy that is going out, i.e. our movement. So when we eat food, what happens to that food is our body breaks it down. It creates energy that we can then use in the form of glycogen, and then we use that. If we don't use that glycogen, we then store it as body fat, adipose tissue it's called. The opposite happens when we don't eat enough. Our body says, we can't hold on to all this stuff, we haven't got enough energy to maintain this body, so we have to get rid of something. And then depending on how your diet is broken down, and then the sort of type of physical training you're doing, if you are doing it, that's how we maintain muscle mass. So first thing we need is a calorie deficit. Every diet that helps you lose weight, lose fat, puts you into a calorie deficit. And what most people need is, really first thing they need is an idea of how much they are eating in terms of energy, in terms of calories. Because with foods like vegetables, if you take broccoli as an example, it's very, very fibrous. So it fills you up really quick. So you could eat a kilo of broccoli. I mean, I don't actually think anyone really can. A kilo of broccoli, you're only taking in a small amount of calories, but because of that fiber, you feel full. And it's a lot of food for little calories. However, if you look at something like a bag of Doritos, they are not very filling, they're not very satiating, there's not much fiber in them, but there's a lot of energy in them. So it's easy to eat less Doritos, it's easy to eat more Doritos and get absolutely shitloads of calories than it is to eat broccoli. And that's why people, I think, are going wrong, because they don't feel as full, so they don't think they've eaten as much. So the first thing we need to do is ascertain exactly how much you're eating on a daily basis, a weekly basis. Please bear in mind that on weekends you probably eat more than you do in the weekdays, because there isn't routine, there isn't structure. We do a lot of socializing, and food and drink is a big part of that. So once we know how much we are eating, and I usually get my clients to do a food diary, whether that's on MyFitnessPal, whether they write it down. Ideally, I want them to do it in real time, so we're not missing those habitual foods. And once they've done that, we can ascertain, right, what do we change in this diet? What do we control? And every diet has an element of control, so that we get the desired outcome of losing body fat or body tissue or weight, depending on your objective, your goal. So here's some ways that diets you may have heard of do it. You may have heard of the Atkins diet, or no carbs, or keto, whatever name it goes by. It changes name a lot. And the way that works is it puts you into a calorie deficit by taking out carbohydrates. In the Western world, especially in the UK and the US, people are eating up to 70% of their diets as carbohydrates, as bread, pasta, potatoes. They're not necessarily bad foods in themselves, but as soon as you take them away from people, people eat less and therefore lose weight. If you look at Slimming World as a diet, I've got some of my clients on Slimming World because it works for them and their lifestyle. I've got nothing against Slimming World at all. What their diet does is they ask you to control the foods that you may overeat. So it could be chocolate, it could be chips, it could be anything that is what is called a hyperpalatable. And a hyperpalatable food is something that you just can't help yourself. For me, it's cheddar cheese. I absolutely love cheddar cheese. I have to weigh it out because I am I can't control myself around it. It's quite nuts. So the Slimming World diet gets you into a calorie deficit by limiting the foods you typically overeat. You're not necessarily measuring the calories you're having, but you are controlling those foods that are high calorie so that you lose weight. This sort of system, if you look at any diet that works, that's what's happening in a calorie deficit. But sometimes we lose muscle mass, sometimes we don't just lose fat, and we don't look the way we want to. So how do we do that with just diet? Now, this is where macronutrients come in. There are 3 macronutrients that we're going to worry about: protein, carbohydrates, and fats. Firstly, let me start by saying that none of these things are evil. Every few years, something gets blamed, but none of them are evil. Fats are absolutely essential for your brain to work, for your immune system to work, and they actually transport nutrients so that everything works correctly. We need fat in our diet, and it is different to the fat we carry, that adipose tissue. Secondly, carbohydrates. Carbohydrates provide us with energy. I remember going to a business once, and I asked the staff of this business, I was like, how do you know that you feel healthy? And they said, because we've got energy. And yet the first thing a lot of people do on a diet is they restrict their carbohydrates so they don't have any energy. Carbohydrates are so beneficial for your performance, and it's just essential. It's just essential. And then we've got protein. Protein is responsible for growth and repair. It's also the most filling, the most satiating macronutrient. And if you use the growth of muscle, it's in meat, it's in fish. So if we want to maintain our muscle mass, ideally what we want is the calorie deficit, but we want to bring our protein up. And I usually ask my clients to start around 30% of my diet, of their diets, as protein to preserve muscle mass. And then from there, we can plan weekly meals and what's happening. So if you know you're going out for a meal on the weekend, where are you going? What restaurant? How can we dictate the choice you're eating there? Maybe it's a steak, brilliant choice. And then how can we structure your day and your week around those calories and around that protein? So as an example, if you work in an office, you find it easy to be strict Monday to Thursday, like most people do. How can we keep calories low enough, hit the protein goal in that scenario, so that we have calories to take over from there? So the takeaway from this video is we need to eat less than we burn to lose weight, and then we need enough protein to maintain muscle mass to get toned with diet. This isn't going to happen overnight. It takes a little bit of time to get into the habits, to know what foods to eat, to know what foods you like, to get around the minefields of restaurants. But if you need anything, that's me. Thanks.